Sebastian, a lot of organizations are suffering at the execution level because they're task saturated. And what is task saturation? That's the perception or the reality that each and every one of your individuals on your team have too much to do with not enough time, tools, or resources to get the mission at hand accomplished. And as a fighter pilot, I've realized that this is the silent killer to execution, because as task saturation increases, errors increase and performance decreases. That perception that an individual has that he or she is task saturated, as a leader, it's important for you to recognize that.
Exactly.
And that's where you do your leadership coaching. That's where the mentorship comes in. There's where you give tools to the person and resources, so they then see that potentially the task saturation is caused by themselves or their own internal environment. So that's an important role in the phase of execution as a leader.
We need more business knowledge and less technical knowledge, because the technical knowledge will be provided by the bot.
Right. There's also an interesting parallel to mRNA. So bear with me first. mRNA technology, and I'm not an expert in this area, but I know enough to be dangerous. mRNA was being studied prior to COVID. But the big breakthrough was, hey, the way that we can build vaccines for viruses has drastically changed. Much easier to do now, and it's faster to develop those. And I think it's analogous or parallel in AI, where the breakthroughs in how we can train the models, specifically with deep learning and the models behind large language models, is allowing the general population to push the boundaries versus just experts in those spaces. So we're able to develop solutions way faster than we're able to in the past. And that's going to drive drastic change in how we do business.
Our technology is one of a kind. So it always takes a minute to help people understand what the technology does. So we are universal checkout technology, which essentially allows a company of any type, whether it's a publisher or a media company or some type of brand or advertiser or an influencer, any type of company like that wants to sell products on their site, or they talk about products in their articles, but they don't want to actually hold the inventory and be a full e-commerce business. So they use Shoppable's technology to basically embed buy buttons into their content, where they can sell products from name brands, from top retailers, and they can actually help their shoppers complete a purchase from within their owned environment.
For a lot of entrepreneurs, documentation is a dirty word, right? And no one wants to write things down and I have to record this and I don't have time for that. And that was me for a long time. But then I discovered that I was hitting a ceiling. My wife and I have 3 children under 3. I reached a point where I had to choose between, do I want to be a good husband and father, or do I want to do this task? And I struggled with that balance because my mindset was, for a long time, if I wanted to do something right, do it myself. And I quickly found that I was running out of time in the day and I was getting burnt out. And I was also doing things that weren't driving the business forward. They were delivery items and not sales items, not growth items. So now my time is spent mostly on growth and building our brand, building our awareness, sales management, and less on some of the delivery functions.
But it's important to really see the point where you have to change and where you have to hand things over and have the right mindset that you don't need to do everything on your own, which is very important.
It's impossible to do everything on our own, but at the same time, it's also difficult sometimes to let go for the entrepreneur. I know it was for me. You need to stop spending the time doing the task and instead training, coaching, and empowering others to do those items, which comes with its own new set of challenges as you transition from a doer to a leader.
I think a lot of people see a brain as pretty much like a computer, that you've got a bunch of wires that are all connected and they fire between each other, all these little channels fire and the wires talk to each other. And somehow whatever computers can do and whatever our brains can do comes out of that. Okay. And you can get into deep discussions on how we do anything with that setup. But anyway, I think a lot of people think that the brain's just like a computer, in that in a factory, you make sure all these wires connect, and that's the computer you're given. And that's the computer you'll have. You can put all sorts of software into it, like our learning and teaching, but you're still pretty much hardwired for,
you can't upgrade your hardware. You can't get the next shiny MacBook.
Yeah, or you got to buy a new computer, right? Which we can't do. But the reality is, it's not that at all. That the nervous system, that the brain is constantly remodeling, like all the time, constantly.
Okay, we learned that you create individual learning paths for the students, which are based on their experience, based on their current state, and you enhance the whole educational process with artificial intelligence.
Yes, exactly.
Adding AI to the platform, using probably AI also for knowledge management, the amount of knowledge, and this is fascinating for me when I work with AI and I work with bots. We have so much knowledge available, but distilling the knowledge and really drilling down on certain aspects, there AI can do a fantastic job. And when you take the knowledge for a certain subject in university and feed this knowledge into this AI, then you can generate all kinds of new training materials, questions, looking at this knowledge from different aspects. And I think there's the power of AI. And when you use this educational space, then this is a real game changer.
Yeah, 100%. And there's also a very interesting aspect, because in our software, the AI supports the educator, supports the administrator. We don't want to replace them. We want to make all the processes more efficiently. So this is the way we need to go. Of course, some aspects can get replaced, but in the end, it needs to be more supportive. And this is also the way we are chosen. And I think this is also the aspects where the educational institution wants to go to move forward in those supportive things.
The challenges you have in this space needs to be destigmatized. And that's a pretty big challenge because people think I don't need coaching.
There's nothing wrong with me, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't need it. It's not therapy, but even nothing wrong with therapy. So I love soccer/football. Cristiano Ronaldo is the best example, who has been coached in all areas of his life, although he's been, need to be careful, the GOAT or the second GOAT, the best player in the world. So we need to learn that coaching is going to help me if we have the right coach. And that's why we have built Wellevue. We want to help to bring the right coach to you. And because we have a vision, but I also have a mission to make coaching, personal development, as accessible and as affordable as possible, basically to everyone. And the need is everywhere. It's not a luxury, shouldn't be a luxury to have coaching.
I saw a lot of these problems with global payments. And the problem we're trying to solve is that how can we help like small businesses like cut down on all these international payment fees, these times, FX fees. And we ran immediately into the problem that, let's be honest, no VC is going to give you money just for an idea. So in a way, like the bootstrapping happened more like we had no choice, you know, because like, hey, it's a great idea, but you need to go get the license, but the license costs €1 million. So how do I get this license? So how do we get started if we have no money? So the first thing we did was we actually applied for a lot of like accelerator programs from big banks, because we're like, hey, if we're with big banks, maybe we can build like piggyback on their infrastructure. So that's how we got started. Then we took part in the MasterCard program. So MasterCard selected us as like the top 5 fintechs in Finland to be part of that program. And immediately people are like, hey, you know, Narvi, they're working with MasterCard. We should take them seriously. So there are ways you can do this without actually spending a lot of money. So for example, to get into the MasterCard program, there was no money involved. Like it was just about telling them the story. Like I'm telling you that, hey, this is what we do. This is the problem we're solving, having an interview, and we got selected. But the marketing and the value, this sort of, let's say, the program is generating for us is, you know, limitless. You know, you're getting effectively sort of an endorsement from MasterCard, which is a global brand.
We're now seeing a real focus in leadership on terms which we never really talked about 10 years ago. So we're hearing words like authenticity, empathy, and, you know, authentic leadership. What exactly is it? There's a real push, isn't there? Especially since the pandemic. People are asking these questions. What type of leaders do we need? Do we need that very strong, authoritarian, top-down leader? Or do we need these sort of empathic, understanding, caring leaders? And so there's a big question about what is leadership now. And one of the reasons why we're asking this question, Sebastian, is because of AI, because AI is able to do so many things now that human beings have been able to do in the past, very basic tasks which are being taken up by machine, all the way up to doctors, for example. If you think about what a doctor's job is, 60% of a doctor's time, especially the top consultants, 60% of their time is looking, if you take away the paperwork, is looking at scans, is looking at patterns. So you go to a doctor, you get a diagnosis based on information and patterns. So you have these very high-paid professionals like leaders whose job effectively is looking at patterns. And if we're talking about pattern recognition, then, AI kicks in, exactly, and it's actually very good at it.
So what we're going to see in this new economy is that AI agents are going to also start conducting transactions with other AI agents. These will be microtransactions that will likely happen over government-sanctioned blockchains, and they will have trillions of transactions per day. So when this happens, this is going to happen and start happening this year. You see it start happening with Windows, with the Copilot integration, but this is going to become more and more a thing. Do not forget that this is the biggest economic opportunity for these large companies in the history of humankind, and that winning over consumers to use your AI assistant is the way, the gateway, just like the browser wars before it, and how you win the consumer market over. So as they are going to try and get consumers on their ecosystem, this is going to be an all-out charm offensive with amazing features and new things that are irresistible for the consumer. Then consumers are basically, that demand is now created where companies have no choice but to be present in these new omni-channel organic marketing areas. And so this there creates the need, not just optional need, but it is like not being in a phone book in 1990 or not having a website in 2020. You do not exist if you don't have it. So it's not a question of if, right? It's really just a question of when.
Tech companies are already pivoting into AI to take advantage of those capabilities, which means that if you're a tech professional and your job is around coding, then you need to be thinking a few steps ahead in terms of where your career is going and how to take advantage of that kind of capability, not run away from it, but take full advantage of it, because companies are adapting very, very quickly. Other areas that are content heavy, like marketing, for example, I've got a number of friends that are in marketing, and we do this ourselves. We use the usual suspects in terms of online large language models to write content. I just hired a position this last week where the job description, I just basically talked, or I typed as I talked to say, here's what I wanted to do. And I got a very, very well put together job advertisement that was like 98% there. I just had to make a couple of tweaks. And again, it's a question of how do you take advantage of these new capabilities and how do you become resilient and pursue the opportunities that they represent. But it's happening really, really fast.
If you can hire great people and put your effort into that, and these are people with great problem solving skills, it does take a particular skill set in a fast growing business because you don't have all the information. So you have to deal with ambiguity, and people who can make decisions and solve problems with incomplete data sets, put them in the right roles and give them clarity on the vision. Then you get support in solving those problems fast as they come up. But you also have to accept you're going to make mistakes. And you just have to deal with them as quickly as possible. Make sure you fix the critical ones. Don't worry about the other ones. And then as soon as you've got time, you go back and loop back round and fix the other businesses. And if you're continually fixing things and continually improving your processes, it's not my idea, but it's incremental gains that David Brailsford talks about. And you're continually improving every little bit. Before you know it, you are miles further forward than you thought you were. And for example, in our growth phases, the first one, when we went from 1 million in our first year to 11.5 million in our third year, and then we had the tough times. And after another 4 years, we'd reduced it back down to 6 million. But then going forward from that, we went in the last 4 years or so, we went from 14 million to 20 to 33 to 42. And so we've gone through it all again, and it's put different pressures on the business. But we've taken the lessons from the first growth period and the mistakes we made there, and we got the right people in place this time. And we've gone through it a lot more smoothly than we did the first time.
So I heard this all the time, people saying, I can sleep when I die. I tell people, if you're on this path, you literally are going to die, right? Sleep affects, if it's your cardiovascular, it controls blood pressure, diabetes. So all those have significance. So somewhere along the line, there is this confusion. There are few people in this world, for example, Elon Musk and previous President Trump and President Obama, they are all called short sleepers. They can function with very little sleep. Even Elon Musk came and said, hey, I am a little different. Make sure you guys sleep. He used to force everybody to, he took sleep for granted. Now he realizes the importance of sleep and he's encouraging everybody to sleep. So very few people who are called short sleepers can work in 4 or 5 hours of sleep, but most of us need 7 to 8 hours. So we heal in our sleep, our memory gets consolidated, everything gets arranged. So sleep, if you sleep 7 hours, you can perform better by sleeping an extra. So our brain is like a supercharged computer and it needs rest to organize things, form new memories, consolidate things, what you learn.
What is neurofeedback?
It just goes without saying, it's a feedback that your brain gives to you, to the brain owner, so that he or she can see how my brain is reacting in certain situations, right? It's a game-changing experience for those who try and who use this regularly. Namely, then they know, okay, when I'm unplugged in a meeting situation, but we plug them in for those situations that raise their high beta brain waves, the stress brain waves. So, we train executives here who have got really stage fright problems, right? So that, they say, well, 200 people around the world is taking a look at me right now online, and it's an internationally operating company, for instance. And then says, well, I know top managers who regularly take a shot and beta blocker before such events.
What do you mean by a shot? A shot of
liquid? Of something, a whiskey, or I don't know what, depending on the rugby, or Uzo.
You know what always gets me when I travel, and for example, I take an early flight and walk around the airport, and there are people in business suits sitting there drinking beer.
Yeah, it's 6 o'clock in the morning.
6 or 7 in the morning,
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
I've heard this example mentioned a couple of times by people, and I think it's quite a good one. It's like, artists back in the day doing their paintings, and then come along photographers. And you think straight away, well, why would you bother to sit there painting a picture when you can get just a perfect copy of that scene, with a camera? That's it. All artists are out of business. Well, of course, that wasn't the case, but things did change. And then, photographers ended up making a fortune out of photography. Yeah. And that's another whole new industry and business now. So just because something new that could take over a little bit from the previous thing comes along, it doesn't mean that we're all suddenly going to be made, redundant, as it were. And I think at this stage of the game, it's fairly obvious what AI could take over and which jobs could be in danger at some point. And, the thing is as people, we have to look ahead a little bit and think like that and think, right, is what I'm doing now possibly going to be taken over? Is it? And sometimes you have to face the truth and accept the fact that things are changing, and you either move with them and adjust, or you potentially go down.
I've been very good at seeing the curve. The key is AI is everywhere. It's not whether you use AI, it's whether you use it differently than everyone else. In an age where it used to be like knowledge is power, and it's like you can Google anything. And knowledge is about to change. It's secret knowledge. Like if you're using it differently, like you're using it in ways that are unexpected, then you can do like the kind of like social hacking that I did. Was right when this happened. I started to talk very heavily about robots and AI because I knew it was coming. I was like, oh man, it's starting to happen. Like the curve's coming. Now I'm riding the wave. Before I was like dragging the train.
Humanity is witnessing the emergence of the greatest technologies that have ever been birthed in human history. And we can harness them for good. Let's do that together. Or we can harness them in greedy ways or in controlling ways. And I think if enough people choose the path forward, which is humans should be in control of these tools, individuals should have personalized AI that guides you and uplifts you throughout your life and helps you reach that level of thriving in every area of your life. And if it notices that you're falling short in some area, if you're lonely, if you're unhappy at work, then it can guide you to a better job or to a better manager or to closer friendships. So one of the things that humans can do with the help of AI is find the models of success in every area of life. Who's living a healthy life? Who has a happy marriage? And model that. The AI can help us understand the actions, the behaviors, the thoughts, the things that happen and don't happen in a successful model. In a country, what is it about Finland? In their education system, I know they value teachers. Almost all teachers have master's degrees. They let children play. There's a lot of things that I've been reading about Finland, and now you're telling me that they have a healthy view of technology, helping them live happier, healthier lives with a better work-life balance. I love that. So the opportunity for all of us is to study and find successful models in all the areas of life that we want to be successful in, and then to use those models as guides to our own journey through life. And AI can help us live up to that model.
You know, oftentimes bosses or even top management says like, yeah, but our people do not take any responsibility. They do not hold any accountability for their actions. Okay, sure. But if you constantly focus on that, then they would rather avoid the blame than take any challenge or take any risk, right? And this is how you kill innovation in your company. And ambitious people, creative people, will leave the organization because it's in their ethos, it's in their heart. They need to create. And so if you drive all of them out, then sooner or later, you'll be just an organization that keeps exploiting the business model that it had, 10 years ago, but the market keeps changing. And sooner or later, you're fallen behind, you're dead. And the way to really solve this problem is actually quite simple. Give people more responsibility. And instead of focusing on who is to blame, let's focus on what happened that this went wrong. So focus on the what, not the who. And if you can solve the process problems, then the who is less likely to happen.
You can be a very good technical business person. You can be a very good manager with all the technical. And then are you going to step up into being really a very good leader? And then I think, I call it a generous leader. Others use the word servant leader. Are you going to step to the next level where actually what you're thinking about, how to make everybody else be the best they can be? And of course, indirectly, you're going to benefit your organization, but more importantly, they're going to thrive, And yeah, and there's probably a step above that if we talk for a while. That's a real is the wrong word. That is the most holistic leader, I think.
A modern leader. When you look at history of leadership, in the past, you always associate a leader with, he's the boss, he has the power, he's tough, he makes a decision, we don't argue with him, he's always right. And nowadays, you cannot be always right. In fact, I would argue, I love to hire people who are more intelligent than me. Because, they should know what they do, I don't want to know every detail of what they are supposed to execute. So they should be better.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But what can you do that's actually really impactful? What's that 20%, at least 80% of the outcomes? And that really fits with your business. And that's going to create that much bigger return in terms of impact, but also much bigger competitive advantages. Because, I think it's good to touch on that point, because you're saying indeed, like, younger people want to work for companies that do this better. But people are starting to ask questions about that, particularly in the US. And I understand why, because it's true. If you are more purpose-driven, studies like Deloitte show companies grow 3 times faster, right? Through better customer loyalty, customer referral figures. 86% of millennials say they'll work for companies with a pay cut if there is more of a purpose, that kind of thing. But there is purpose and there's purpose. There are so many companies that started this that were innovative and you knew about that. And so like a Patagonia, for example, an interface, they're the ones that really get those benefits. But if you're more following and you're compliant with regulations, people don't get as excited about that. If you as a company start to recycle, it's unlikely people are going to come and specifically work for your company because you recycle. Do you know what I mean? There is a difference, right? And I think if you want to get big impact and you want to be attractive to talented people, to get customers excited, to be more loyal, to refer you to friends and family, it takes something else. And it takes doing something that's really effective.
It sounds futuristic. It seems like it can't possibly exist today. It seems like something that's still down the road, but we have actual customers that have it deployed and are solving production problems with this autonomous AI. What makes it unique is that it does what everyone wants AI to do, which is that it doesn't just make a prediction. It actually says, based on the current state of the system, here's your next best move. Here's your next most optimal move. And that's really what our customers are looking for.
Interesting. And what kind of customers, what kind of industries are applying these solutions?
It's pretty widespread. So we've got customers, we've got food and beverage customers that are doing this, but then from there, we've got a glass bottle manufacturer that's using this thing. We've worked with paint manufacturers. We've worked with a company that makes baby formula. And so what we really get excited about with this autonomous AI approach is that we can use a single technology to solve a lot of different problems, which we love that. As a system integrator, we're looking for, it reminds me of, if you're familiar with, in our world, we have these time series databases called historians, and they've been around now for 20, 25 years. And it reminds me of that same arc that we had with historians, in that it was a single technology time series database, but it could solve problems for all kinds of different industries and solve lots of different use cases in any one client. That's what we're seeing with this autonomous AI approach.
Those web of agents that can help you with other B2B leaders essentially go to market faster. Because that knowledge really sits at the strategy consultancies like McKinsey, Bain, BCG, or leading tech companies like Meta and Google. That knowledge and skill and know-how is really monopolized, and it's not something you can Google. OpenAI is trained on mostly publicly available data, not in hidden IPs. But we have it. And the best way to describe this is that we are building a neurosymbolic AI, which is, in simple terms, an AI that is built for human problems that thoroughly exist, which is meant to solve a problem that truly exists. So the reason I'm saying that is because most AI companies, from our very comprehensive blue ocean market analysis, show that they're building solutions from an R&D perspective. They're building engineers build very cool technologies, but they're not solving problems. So okay, here's this amazing tech. Where can we position this?
So the way I look at it is a bit more analytical. I like to look at the data of your speech, kind of pull it into numbers. So the way I like to look at it is, what percentage can we improve each and every one of those main goals? And we can do that by pre and post assessment and really identify that. And then, when we're done a program, even from there, even if you've made significant changes, what you can continue focusing your time on. You know what to do. It's just, we're just going to spend our time on this one thing. And really, when it comes to instruction, it's very simple. It's a simple process, but it takes time. It takes time and it takes understanding. So we're working on getting you to not only understand what your issue is. So let's say it's R, that's a struggle sound. We're going to know how to create that sound in a very consistent way. And once you can do that, we're moving on. We're going to go to word level, then phrase level, then sentence level, then reading, and then conversation. And I think for a lot of people, they want to jump. Of course you want to jump. You want to use what you know. So you know how to say the sound maybe very well. And maybe even in a couple words, you can say that sound well. But when it comes to conversation, it just does not come out. It doesn't translate. And that's because we're skipping some steps that we need to master before we get to that conversation level. And that's usually where, I help people with all those levels, but usually that's the big problem, is how do I use this in a functional way every day in my conversations, in my work meetings, and then feel good about how I'm doing that.
As a listener of the High Performance CEO Show, you are already part of a community that values growth, excellence, and pushing boundaries. I created the High Performance CEO Hub, which is a free community where you can connect with me and other listeners, get behind the scenes insights, learn how to improve performance and efficiency, and find accountability partners to grow together. Go to www.thehighperformanceCEOHub.com and join us today. It's free. It's valuable and it's waiting for you.